Hello, I'm Jayde Ithier.
And I'm Zion Coleman. Welcome to this edition of Lehman College's Journalism and Media Studies Speaker Series.
Our guest today is Edwin Mejia Jr., the co-founder and executive producer of the Generation Iron brands and the company Vadar Company Films, two fully integrated media companies producing and distributing media for film, TV, live events, digital platforms, tech, publishing, podcasts, and holdings in branded fitness studio operations. Mr. Mejia leads business development, in-house productions, co-productions, acquisitions, and manages the worldwide media, IP distribution, and licensing needs.
But before we begin, let's take a look at some of Generation Iron and Vadar companies. That's great work and amazing material. Welcome.
Thank you for having me here. It's actually a pleasure and an honor to be here because, number one, I'm not sure if most of you might know this, but I'm also the chair of Bronxnet that has a studio here, of course, at Lehman College.
We are aware and we will discuss about that. Thank you for sharing your time. You are an executive producer at Generation Iron and Vadar companies, which consists of you having to perform many tasks while and during your day. For those that may not know what an executive producer does, can you share your responsibilities?
Absolutely. So, I would say, just to give you a well-rounded view of what I do today, I'm responsible for productions, co-productions, in-house productions, anything that has to do with business development, distribution, and sales. So I oversee all the business development at both of our companies, which are two vertically integrated companies producing film, TV, entertainment, content, digital, live events, broadcasting and handling all of our IP distribution and licensing worldwide.
That's amazing. That's good work. Oh, and out of the responsibilities, what do you find the most rewarding and the most challenging?
Yeah, so in media, obviously, we all know that there comes a time where we have to wear many hats, of course. And, you know, as a filmmaker, I initially started as a filmmaker, right? As a producer, I've always wanted to create something tangible, something that was to me, you know, of value in terms of the arts, right? My artistic ambition in the arts started to grow a lot. I would say back in 2008, 2007. Before that, I mean, something that I didn't mention is that I worked on Wall Street for 6 years. So I worked in finance at Wall Street for about 5-6 years. Coming out of college, I just wanted to work in you know, finance, make as much money as possible, help my mother pay her mortgage, and, you know, get us in a good place. And I did that for about 5 years, 6 years. I did a lot of commercial real estate financing at Lehman Brothers before 2008. And but prior to that, I did a lot of asset management work at Smith Barney Citigroup. It was all finance. But once I started to see the ability to create content and create media during a time when entrepreneurship was not a thing, I thought to myself, this is an opportunity I wanted to grow more into. And I had a buddy of mine who went to film school, who's a director, and he had asked me to help him produce and help him put together this first feature that we were doing in a documentary on Big Pun. Big Pun being from the Bronx, born, you know, raised in the Bronx, in the South Bronx. I've always been a big fan of Big Pun, of course, and the Terror Squad and all those guys. And for me, it was really exciting to meet all these great artists. We started putting together this amazing documentary, and I realized there was a lot of passion in creating, bridging relationships, communicating with artists, entertainment executives, and putting it all together. And that's how it all evolved and created a passion to create film and TV, which is a big part of everything that we do.
I think that's really inspiring, you know, to go from one place to another without knowing what's going to happen. I think that's really inspiring. So thank you. Yeah.
No, thank you. Yeah, it was a moment of time where, like I said, entrepreneurship was not a thing. I mean, I came from a world where I wanted to be involved with film, help raise funding for certain projects. We started putting together an agenda for music docs at the time. Most people know that, you know, I don't know if you remember, I mean, this might be, I mean, a little older now, but Napster was a big thing back in the day. Music piracy was a big thing, and a lot of the music studios in New York, like Universal Music, EMI, all these massive record companies were having issues selling their music catalog. So the first thing that they thought, and that we came up with an idea, is, hey, maybe we can help them market their catalog by creating music docs on music artists. So we started to approach a lot of the music executives in New York City to create music docs, Big Pun being one of them, with Sony Music Legacy at the time. And we put together this documentary, being very young, naive, you know, filmmakers, a novice, and it became a big, big success because not only were we able to put together this really amazing story about Big Pun and his story and how many people he's inspired, but also we were able to produce a soundtrack for it and work with the estate and Liza Rios and talk about the Bronx, talk about all the influences out of the Bronx, and create a film that Sony ultimately came on board to help market and distribute with us.
Wow, thank you for sharing that. You kind of touched on it a little bit, but let's discuss your formative years. So can you start by telling us where you grew up and where you're from?
Yeah, so I grew up literally on Fox Street and Longwood Avenue in the South Bronx. That's originally from where we're all from, my whole entire family is from. I'm a son of Dominican immigrants that came here in the early 80s, I would say, late 70s, early 80s. And we all grew up on Fox Street and Longwood Avenue. And, you know, very early on, I had a lot of different influences, of course. And, you know, growing up, I didn't really have the mentorship, right? Or someone to look at to say, there's an opportunity in the field of media, technology, film, TV. Today, there is that opportunity, right? Because that there are careers in editing, film, TV, broadcasting, things that I did not know that were possible back then. But for me, I just wanted to do the right thing, making sure I go to school, and growing up in the Bronx, I never really had a role model, but I did have a lot of great talented people around me that didn't know what to do with their talent.
That's very interesting. Thank you. And in what ways has your upbringing, being born in the Bronx, raised in the Bronx, as well as your cultural roots being a Dominican American, how has that shaped your perspective as a producer?
Yeah, look, I look at a lot of different things. I had a cousin of mine who ultimately what he did was he was also from Fox Street, much older than me, and he was always into fashion and to the arts. He ended up going on Project Runway, Emilio Sosa. He actually became the theater wing on Broadway. So he inspired me a lot too with the arts, because I thought it was a good opportunity to venture more into film and TV, and that ultimately gave me the passion and the ability to want to go into it. And obviously, I credit my producing partner, one of my best friends, of course, Vlad Uden, who's also one of my partners on all our projects. He's a filmmaker, director. I've always wanted to team up with someone that I can help produce with, and I think everything that I do is about creating with others that are as passionate about the same goals that I am. And I think that a lot of people have this mindset of doing things alone. I think it's important to create content, create media, and create opportunities with other partners.
I see that you value teamwork, so that's awesome to hear. So as the son of Dominican immigrants, as you previously mentioned, do you feel a personal responsibility to highlight certain communities, especially those whose stories may be underrepresented in mainstream medias?
Absolutely. We started a project called Generation Iron, which is what our company is called today, Generation Iron. So it was a movie and a film that we produced in 2013. Early 2013, we met with a lot of the folks that produced the original movie called Pumping Iron, which was the movie that discovered Arnold back in the day. And the producer of that movie, we were able to convince him to help come on board to help produce this movie on bodybuilders, right? So I really quickly, I met a lot of these bodybuilders. A lot of them, were from very underprivileged neighborhoods as well. Kai Green being one from Brooklyn, New York. Someone who grew up as an orphan, the foster care system in New York City, and I thought his story was really interesting because he had not only the ability to be a professional bodybuilder and a champion, but also he's an artist. And we started creating this film more so because of him, and we started documenting specific bodybuilders around the country that had similar stories. Ultimately, the film was a huge success for us because Arnold was able to come on board to the film and co-sign the film in many ways, and it became a sequel of sorts to Pumping Iron. And the film itself was a testament to the hard work that we put into the talent, the casting, the storytelling, individually across the country, and it became the top 5 highest grossing documentary in the box office in 2014. We did all the exhibition. We started reaching out to AMC directly to create our independent theatrical opportunity for the film. The film opened so well that we started getting calls from Regal, Cinemark, and National Amusements and other theaters. So essentially, we became, in many ways, a theatrical distributor within weeks with bridging our own relationships. And that kind of gave us the momentum to create more content in that space, which is in the fitness and the health space, which is just today is GenerationIron.com.
So how did you feel during that time? Did you think to yourself, this is it? Like, I don't need nothing else. Like, I'm gonna make so much money. Like, people are not gonna even see me coming. Like, I'm gonna be a major success. Did you think that during that time?
No, we did not, and I did not because I looked at it as as an opportunity, and in terms of how can I continue to capitalize and how can I continue to create valuable content. That was during a time, of course, where we were in a space where we wanted to create a movie or create a film or create a project. As a filmmaker, you want to make the best possible project and then have a studio come on board, buy it, right? But we really knew early on that we didn't want to go that route because, number one, not every studio believed in us and not every network believed in us as a filmmaker. So we took it upon us to retain our rights for distribution. In other words, very early on, people know Netflix, Hulu, HBO as the streaming networks, right? But what they are streaming networks, but they take the subscription rights. So when you subscribe to those networks, you're essentially paying a monthly fee, but we wanted to retain the transactional fees, the transactional window, which is, as we all know, it's rental purchase, right? When you purchase a movie or rental. So we retain the rights for rental and purchase, and then we would license the movie to Netflix very early on when they were very small. So that allowed us to grow in many ways because we were able to still monetize many other windows by not giving away all of our rights to our films. That was during a time when it was not necessarily something customary. That's not something that you normally do. You would just want to license your film and just keep on to the next one. But I knew very early on that we had to retain our rights for our projects in order to continue to grow.
That was smart, actually. Very smart.
Yes, use your innovative skills to help yourself and help your film. So thank you for sharing that. You did mention that you began on Wall Street and you started on Wall Street. How did the shift from Wall Street to media producing shape your perspective on storytelling?
Yeah, I would remember the day. I mean, I worked in finance for 6 years, and I remember one day it just clicked. I said I couldn't do this anymore. I would wake up every morning in 2007 and just sit in my shower not wanting to go to the office. Because I worked with a lot of talented people. I learned a lot. One of the things that I learned a lot about finance is that it teaches you a lot of work ethic, a lot of structure, and you understand how to create certain incentives for yourself in terms of creating content and media today, which is what I do. But I think for me, it allowed me to really understand what it was that I wanted to add value to, and I woke up one day, I said I had to put I wanted to put my 2 weeks notice in because I wanted to help a buddy of mine finish a production and start the Big Pun movie that I just wanted to do. And I put my 2 weeks notice in while I was producing these projects at the beginning. And then, all my managers and my bosses thought I was crazy. Luckily for me, they said, they said I didn't burn any bridges. So they said if it didn't work out, I could always come back. Okay. But it was also a moment of time for me where I wanted to create something, and I want to create something more substantial. And I said, what's the worst that can happen? It would fail, and I would come back to finance to pay my bills, right? And that was a pivotal moment for me in terms of understanding that I wanted to go into media. And then I got a call from the New York Latino Film Festival that they wanted to premiere the Big Pun film. This was right around the time that I left finance. And that was a huge opportunity for us because that created a lot of press, a lot of momentum, and we were able to sell the film worldwide right around that time.
So you said that they thought you were a bit crazy. So did they call you after they saw your success, like, oh, hey, so you actually wasn't crazy?
That's a good question. In fact, I left in May of 2008, and there was a huge, obviously most people know there's a huge crisis at the end of 2008, a huge recession. So I kind of looked like I had a crystal ball, but in reality I didn't. And they all thought that it was the right move at the time. A few of my friends, and it's funny because I ended up working with a lot of people that ended up starting their own thing too. As a few of the folks there that started media, that also went into working at Lyft, and some of the folks also that I've worked with have gone on to create different things and work into different industries. So it was, like I said, it was before entrepreneurship was a thing, but it certainly inspired a lot of movement for everybody to do their own thing.
That's amazing to hear. Marketing is crucial for the success of anything that's being promoted. You agree? With your position and the knowledge you have gained in the industry, when do you think is the best time to market a project like a documentary? Should it be included in the overall plan of the project, or is it something that comes after shooting is completed?
Yeah, it's a great question and something that's not asked enough. And quite frankly, any project that I've taken on, that I've looked to come on board on, I always look at an exit strategy, the exit strategy being the distribution. How is it going to be marketed, right? And we are very, and I say we, our company has been very strategic with regards to the projects that it takes on because of marketing. We realized very early on that we're not going to have big P&A budgets, print and advertising budgets for our films unless we have the right marketing partners. So strategically, we've always aligned ourselves with partners that can come help promote our projects, market our films, and talent. So, for instance, with Generation Iron, we teamed up with a company called American Media Inc. at the time, which most people know them from, they owned the National Enquirer, Radar Online, and big PR, publicity trades. So they also owned the Mr. Olympia show, which is the Oscars of bodybuilding and of men's fitness, muscle and fitness magazines. So we knew that having them on as partners would grant us tremendous amount of value in terms of advertising for the film when come to release. So those are kind of strategic relationships that have helped us. We've also come on board to help produce live events for Arnold as well, and a lot of documentaries that we've done have included Arnold because of our relationship with him. We've been able to also get a lot of promotion and marketing from a lot of the networks that we work with there at the Arnold Classic events in Ohio. Same thing with the movie that we did on The Hurt Business, which we did with Ronda Rousey, John Jones, who's one of the top MMA, UFC fighters in the world. We partnered up with UFC, with Bellator at the time, to help release that movie. So our relationship, our films are very strategic, and I think every filmmaker and every producer should think outside the box of just creating a movie, but also aligning themselves with the right partner on the marketing side and on the distribution side.
That's really interesting. Have you ever been pitched an idea where marketing wasn't included, and how did you talk to that person? Like, hey, you're missing something important. So
yeah, it happens a lot. I mean, we do get pitched a lot of projects without proper marketing. I think a lot of filmmakers are becoming they're very smart these days because they realize that they need to create their own audience in order to create value for their projects. I mean, when we've been pitched projects in the past where they don't have, let's say, a specific marketing agenda, distribution agenda in place, we tend to reconfigure a project if we really want to make it work, or we obviously it just doesn't fit our model, because at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of resources that are going to be exhausted on these projects, right? Talking about development, production, post-production, and also marketing. And it comes down to how much effort can you put into a project, and how much value can you put into a project in terms of marketing and distribution.
So that's important. Everyone here is, and everyone is watching. Marketing is important. Please don't forget that in your plan, ever. Okay. Years ago, when there was only broadcast TV and actual movie theaters, content creators, they were in a roadblock when they wanted to distribute the content that they made. Now it's easy as pressing the publish button on YouTube. With everything being simplified to distribute, do you find it difficult to recognize the best content that there is out there?
Yes and no. I think that today filmmakers are taking up ownership of their content, and they're looking for ways to be as live as possible. I mean, everything today is revolving around, how fast you can get something out, how fast you can market something. There is a lot of content out there, so that gets lost. The way that that ends up happening is because there isn't a solidified plan in place for marketing. I mean, a lot of the traditional marketing that's done for film and TV has changed over the years, where you have your traditional 3, 4, 5 month windows of marketing and promotion, where now when there's a streaming and a film that comes online, you have you see movies now that get 2 weeks of promotion, real promotion before they get marketed. So I think the key is to have a solid marketing distribution agenda very early on. And again, it comes down to who the partners are and how you can get it seen by people and that you can add value to. In other words, there's a lot of people out there, a lot of subjects on a documentary side that we work with that may have huge presence on social media or might have a huge presence internationally, but maybe they don't necessarily have the domestic presence that they need. So we find a lot of artists like that, a lot of entertainers, and a lot of athletes as well that we can work with and add value to. But I think it works both ways. We want to look at it as a partnership. I think when you're creating a film or creating a project, you want to look at talent, you want to look at subjects as partners that can come on board to help market and advertise a film. And I think that will help your film or your project or your show stand out.
Once again, keyword, marketing, advertising, very important.
In building your career as a producer, how have your business skills helped you navigate challenges or find creative solutions when undergoing an obstacle during production? Or can you mention a specific, maybe a skill that you would have used in a challenging situation to help you overcome it?
Yeah, there's been a lot of learning lessons over the years. As a filmmaker, as a producer, as a IP owner, because you want to own your IP, you want to own your content, right? You have to, you learn through the time. And one of the things that I've learned over the years is having the ability to have the right clearance forms, appearance release forms, understanding in terms of what content you're creating. If you're in a documentary, unscripted space, you want to make sure you understand fair use laws, because fair use laws really allow you to create content in a way where you don't have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars to get clearance rights usage for your films and your shows. We've had a lot of learning lessons in that regard. Music as well is a different beast, and having an understanding of how to integrate music into your content. Nowadays, you see a lot of big, music services out there selling music for cents on the dollar, but then you read the fine line and you realize you don't have all rights for music to be, exploited worldwide or domestically or in streaming. So there's a lot of things like that, but ultimately, we've learned our lessons a lot through trial and error, but we also realized that there were a lot of barriers to entry to releasing our projects. And by that I mean, again, if you're creating a film or show or network, a TV show or whatever it is, you want to find the right distribution partner. And sometimes you won't really have a partner until you know what kind of product you have. Or film or show you have. And that comes down to the right distributor. And we realized very early on that we were not going to have a distributor for every project we created. So we realized that we had to create our own accounts with Amazon, Google Play, Apple TV, and the streamers. And in 2015, we started creating all this content. And we started creating relationships when they would some companies would make fun of us. They would say, "Oh, you're working with Netflix. They're kind of small." And that was during a time where when they were really small. But we started creating our own vendor relationships very early on in order to distribute our media and our content through those platforms, because we realized in the future, for us to continue to sustain, we would have to have those outlets in place for our content. And that's some of the challenges that we saw early on, and we were able to capitalize on.
That's crazy how Netflix has changed. And they were joking about
Big
the
dogs.
fact that Netflix was so small. Look at where Netflix went. So my next question is, in terms of Generation Iron, how did you know, or did you know, that there was an audience for Strain Sports and that they were going to receive your work well?
Yeah, it's a great question. We started releasing content in the film space, in the strength space. So just for everybody to know, we today, thankfully, we've become the largest independent strength sports publisher network in the world. So we have thousands and thousands of hours of content for shows, series that is housed across YouTube, also Hulu, Netflix, and many other streamers. But we put together a big catalog, right, in that space. A lot of that has to do with the work that we've been doing on the film, TV side, but also we realized that there was a huge momentum for health and fitness, strength content, and nobody was servicing that audience. So we started creating, after the success of the Generation Iron 1, we started creating more films in that space with influencers during the time when, social media was not as big as it is today, but they still had massive followings. And during that time, TikTok is still a little similar, but during that time, influencers and many, celebrities had a lot of power, meaning that the algorithm, everything that you would post on Instagram, anything that you would post on Facebook, everybody would see it. So a lot of these athletes, a lot of these celebs, and a lot of these entertainers and professional athletes that we worked with would promote our projects with us. So that would mean millions and millions and millions of eyeballs on our content. And that allowed us to create more content in that space. So we realized, let's continue making content and serving content in the strength space and utilizing all those social media platforms as a 360 marketing platform for our films.
That's amazing. Earlier, you mentioned Bronxnet, and I did say that we're going to come back to it. So you are giving back to the community in, I believe, the best way possible. As a chairman of the board for Bronxnet, a not-for-profit organization that delivers their own programming and offers education to students who want to be in mainstream media. Can you share with us why you are dedicating the time out of your very busy schedule to support a community organization?
Yeah, beautiful question, amazing question. I'm very proud to serve on the board of Bronxnet. I was initially part of Bronxnet. I came on in 2014, late 2014, and 2020 I became the treasurer. I was nominated by Ruben Diaz Jr. initially. And I was always a big fan of Bronxnet. I was initially interviewed at Bronxnet for my Big Pun documentary back in 2010, I believe. And after that moment, after I came to the Lehman Campus for that interview, I was very impressed. I was inspired by the capabilities here, and more importantly, by what Bronxnet was doing for a lot of students and a lot of the youth, especially knowing that, like I said earlier, I did not have an opportunity to know that there was a potential career in media, broadcasting, TV, film, and Bronxnet has been a huge conduit for that, and I thought it was a really good opportunity for me to give back and continue to help Bronxnet grow beyond just communication, broadcast, TV, but more so becoming a one-stop location and a cornerstone in many ways of the changing media landscape, but in a way where it can continue to expand and help provide more insight to the community in the Bronx. And it was inspiring to me to be a part of that. And today it still is. And today, obviously, media has evolved so much. And Bronxnet has become more than just the Bronx, of course. It's become an educational resource, a conduit for many legislators, but also has become a huge opportunity for people that want to learn about technology, media, training, and education. And that's the thing that inspires me the most. And my responsibility for myself right now with Bronxnet is to continue to find avenues to have it grow on the media side.
I respect your volunteer work because as an intern at Bronxnet in the summer, in the fall, in this spring, it really does open the world to you. I've done production, studio production, programming. So yeah, just major respect to you for that, for just giving your time to something that really is important to our community.
Thank you. Yeah, I value it very, very greatly. I mean, I think, like I said, I think it's a resource that I did not have growing up, that I think that we have that resource here in the Bronx is a huge, huge value. And I would love to continue that, and I'm very happy to be a part of the distinguished board of directors.
Thank you.
So, is there any question that we should have asked you that we didn't touch on today?
Ooh, that's a good one. Great question. I mean, I think that there's always a challenge, that comes out. I mean, one of the questions that I usually get is, what are the challenges that you face in terms of managing a team? And I think that communication has always been the number one thing. Transparent communication with our teams in terms of having candid conversations, but also conversations about what we can do better, right? As a team, as leaders. And I think that when you're creating media, creating technology, or production, you need to have a unified voice, and you have to have a unified plan in terms of your overall agenda for your projects very early on. And that's something that, is not talked about enough, because ultimately we all want to make a great film, but it takes a lot of different leaders and a lot of different people to, wear different hats to make sure that you can accomplish those goals. But communication is always the number one key, and has been, it could be the biggest deterrent, but it could be a big, the lifesaver for any project.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that.
Now we're going to turn to our studio audience for any questions.
Good afternoon, Mr. Mejia. It's a pleasure having you here. Great presentation. Just wanted to ask, where did you study? What type of major did you major in? And also, how did the whole idea of creating production spark into you? When did you become passionate about doing it?
Yeah, it's a good question. I went to school at Pace University, so I went to Pace. I went to Pace first and foremost because I went to go play baseball. So I played baseball. It was a Division I program at the time, so I got a partial scholarship to play baseball. But I also chose Pace because they have a good, a good business program. I always wanted to go into business and finance, or learn more about business. So I started international business management. That was my major at the time, and like I said earlier, I think I always wanted to work on Wall Street. I did my internships at Citigroup, Smith Barney, Fidelity Investments, and then I went into Lehman. I got an offer at Lehman Brothers to join their analyst program 6 months before I graduated college, and I remember 4 years into Lehman, I was just a little bit miserable. I worked with great people, but I was not happy, and my artistic ambition started to grow because I had a really good friend who was a director, filmmaker, who I thought was a little crazy with a camera, during a time where YouTube wasn't a thing, and he was making films, and I was helping him create our first feature film, which was Last Day of Summer. So I started helping him produce that film while I was working in finance, and then it sparked, the interest in me, along with my cousin who's on Broadway as a theater wing, and I wanted to go into the arts, and I put my 2 weeks notice in, and I started producing full time during the crisis in 2008, and I remember living off of my savings, scrapping, eating pizza and eating whatever I could or I could afford at the time. Because I was essentially running out of my savings, and lo and behold, we were thankful that we produced Generation Iron, and of course, a movie called Last Day of Summer with Nikki Reed from Twilight. And that movie came out, and then because that movie was released, our movie was sold to Showtime, and that started more of the ambition into film and TV.
Thank you very much.
Next question. Come on up. That's right. You can get in line. That's right. You can stand right behind it. That's great.
Hi, nice meeting you.
Good to
Thank you
meet
for
you.
coming. My question is there either a producer, actor, or director that you haven't worked with that you would want to work with, like a dream collaboration?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one person that I'd love to work with personally is obviously Zoe Saldana. I think she would be awesome to work with. I think not only because she represents many of us, but also her artistic ambition, what she's created, her talents, and her ability to create vibrant projects have inspired me. I would love to work with someone like her. There's many others, but I think that's a big one for me, and I think there's a few others out there. I mean, I think Vin Diesel would be great to work with. I think he's very passionate about what he does, and those are people that I think would be great to work with. And I've worked with a few others, but I think those are the few that I would say.
Thank you.
Hi, nice to meet you. So, as someone who's been in the industry for a while now, what advice would you bestow on a graduating student from, let's say, Lehman College, coming into the industry that would like to find some work?
In the field of film, TV, yeah, I mean, the number one recommendation I would give anyone is to continue to collaborate with as many people as you can, especially people that are more experienced than you. Even if it's just like an internship, a mentorship program, something that allows you to be even a PA. I think those are very, very, very valuable, because if you can emulate some of the things that they've done, it'll really help you over time. Even if it's just understanding certain aspects of what they do on a day-to-day basis, it'll help you grow faster and create the right relationships later for more recommendations and referrals. You're welcome.
Next question.
Hello, and my question for you today is, what do you find as the most satisfying part of your job?
Great question. I would say the most satisfying part of my job is really meeting so many talented people. We've been able to produce media and content all over the world, except Antarctica. That's the only continent I think I've ever been to. But that has been the best part of creating content and creating media. And I think a lot of other producers probably feel the same way. It's just being able to travel and meet so many talented individuals that are so good at what they do and add value and meaning to the projects that you create.
Thank you.
Another question? Any others? Please, come on up. Good. Time for one more after this, so if you're thinking about it.
Ooh, let me fix this. Hello, sir. Nice to meet you. As a media entrepreneur, I want to know, what are 3 challenges you had to face, and how did you overcome them? And our second question is, as a combat sports fan, I just want to know, what was your experience working with companies like the UFC and Bellator and working with the top athletes over there?
Yeah, it's a great question. I'm going to be very honest. I mean, the challenges for me very early on is nobody would pick up the phone. I would call nonstop studios left and right, acquisition executives all the time, for them to say yes, and they would always hang up the phone. I'm not. This is a true story. I mean, it happens all the time. So those are challenges that I didn't see coming at the beginning, but once you realize that that's what you were presented with, you're trying to find a way to create opportunities for yourself. So that allowed us to just create more content. When we started creating our own content, we started to build more relationships, which allowed us to open more doors. One of the other challenges that I briefly mentioned before is just being able to create our own channels and our own distribution network. So in many ways, not only were we producers, but in order to sustain, we had to become a hybrid distributor. So we had to not only produce, but also distribute our own media and our own content to a degree in order to grow. In terms of working with the UFC, it was quite of a challenge, similar to our Generation Iron in the bodybuilding world, because they have, at the end of the day, a brand to protect, right? So their brand, which is the UFC, is they like to create everything themselves. They don't want the media to highlight their athletes in a bad light. But luckily for us, we were able to gain their trust by the content that we've created before, and have people refer us, like Arnold and others, that were able to be a testament to our projects. And then we were able to meet a lot of folks that came on board to our projects to help them as well. So one example is Kevin Costner. His kids are big MMA fans, so we were able to have him come on as a narrator for the film, and that allowed us to kind of open up more doors in the UFC, and that allowed us to grow. And then because of that, I think that allowed us to work with other brands too, like Estee Lauder and a few others that are very, very protective of their brands. And once you have that experience and you show them that you can do that, they, more doors will open.
How was it like meeting John Jones?
It was great. I mean, he's obviously, in my opinion, and I'm sure yours, he's best pound for pound fighter in the world, or one of the top. It was great at first. I mean, you see these guys in their element. They're fighters and art athletes. They're like artists. They go into their own bubble. They're in their own world, and they create and they do and they do their magic. It was really interesting working with him. We went to New Mexico, and we were able to be there with his camp, which was really great because they obviously work with other fighters as well. So it was a lot of fun.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your time.
Okay, we have one more question, and then we'll wrap up. Go ahead.
Hi, Farland Sosa, nice to meet you. If you had to restart tomorrow as 20-year-old again in the media industry, what would you do differently, or what would be your plan for success?
Yeah, if I were to start, great question. If I were to start today, I would try to buy and own all my equipment, learn editing. I encourage everybody in here to learn editing, even if you don't want to make it your day-to-day thing. Why? Because there's tremendous amount of value in creating and editing your own work. Not that you have to do it. I wouldn't edit. I mean, I would probably want to learn how to edit. And I would also create my own content right away. And that means producing, editing, whatever it is, and being front and face for, in other words, creating your own channels, your own networks right away. That's something that we did not do right away. We learned through time, and we were able to, own our own camera equipment, own our own, editing software. All those things are very important, and that's the number one recommendation I would give to everyone to start right away. Because if you have your own content, you have your own media, and you can edit it, you'll be able to be in control.
Thank you.
Well, we are just about out of time for this edition of Lehman College's Journalism and Media Studies Speaker Series.
We would like to thank our amazing guest, entrepreneur, executive producer, and co-founder of the Vadar Company and Iron Brands, Edwin Mejia Jr. Until next time, I'm Jayde Ithier.
And I'm Zion Coleman. Thank you for watching.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you guys for watching. No worries.